Hello everybody, it's Trevor G. Blake from trevorgblake.com. If you're like most people I meet these days, you are feeling a little discombobulated. I'm not even sure if that's a real word in a vocabulary anywhere, but it's a word we use where I grew up, where I come from. And we use it to sort of describe a feeling of just feeling a little bit out of sync, a little off balance, off kilter, a little disrupted. And I meet a lot of people who are feeling like that these days, and that's what I want to talk about. And people who are smarter than me, you know, all these sages and energy workers and astrologers and all that, they talk about this as a shift. They talk about it as a shift in energy, and they give it names, like the Great Age of Transformation. And I don't really understand all of that. I don't understand astrology. I'm fascinated by it, but I've never studied it. And you know, they talk about the ending of one era, I think the Piscean era, and the beginning of the Aquarius era from 2020, and how this is going to disrupt every aspect of our lives. So it's going to disrupt business and leisure and communication and entertainment and transport and everything. And, you know, knowing nothing about any of the resources or research that they've done to come to that conclusion, I have to agree with them because I feel discombobulated. Now, I'm an entrepreneur, so I view the world through entrepreneur eyes, and I feel it too. I feel this shift in energy. I'm also a physicist by trade or by education, so I have my first degree was in radiation physics and nuclear medicine, and I've continued my studies over the years, so I don't know what I would be now, but I am fascinated by quantum physics, and I have a course, Transformation, which focuses on comparing the micro changes or the micro mechanics of quantum physics with the macro interpretation. In other words, what happens if we play with energy in a slightly different way? What happens to our lives? And people learn tools and techniques whereby they can take greater control over the life experiences they have simply by changing the way they play with energy. So my fascination with energy comes from that standpoint, and I've used my learning and playfulness in my entrepreneurial career. So I feel this shift, and so other than physics, my other two real passions are anthropology and history. And so when I've studied both of those subjects, I found that this shift in energy occurs regularly. Now keep in mind that the Earth is 4.63 billion years old, right? And humans have been here for the blink of an eye. You know, but we're arrogant, and so as a rule, we're an arrogant species, and so I don't think anyone would deny that. And so, you know, we think we know it all, right? We think we can understand shifts in energy, and we think we can understand astrology, and yet we've been here this amount of time, hardly any time at all. And so I'm sure there's much more to what's going on than our interpretation of shifting in energies that we call masculine and feminine. I'm pretty sure something really big is going on with the Earth that we don't understand yet, or hasn't been revealed to us yet. Nothing sinister. I think it's all going to be good. But when I look at things from an anthropology standpoint, I see that up until 1284, the dominant energy from roughly the Roman era to 1284, the dominant energy is what we would call feminine. This isn't a gender discussion, but we lost the ability to communicate telepathically a long time ago, and so we have to use words to describe things, and so we give labels to everything. So we give labels to these types of energy, and energy always changes, right? It's always in phase, it's always up and down, so it waves. And so it's not hard to understand that the reflection of that in the physical world is going to make changes. We're going to experience changes as we go through our various incarnations as humans. And so up to 1284 was very much what we would call a feminine energy, and feminine energy is so I use my imagination in a visual way. Some people use it in an auditory way, and some people are more sensitive, more feeling, but I'm very visual. So how I see feminine energy is very fast, very spiraling, like a tornado. You're either in it or you're out of it. And when you're in it, you've got to move really fast. Everything's changing. Everything's innovative. And then there was a great age of transformation round about 1284, lasted for 4 or 5 years, and then the repercussions of that last for centuries, of course. And we shifted into what we would now call masculine energy. And masculine energy, if you want to think of it visually, is like a ruler. It's very flat and very linear, and it's very slow. And it's methodical, and it's like a clipboard mentality. Do one thing at a time, step by step, up the ladder. Everything is in lines, build a railroad, build a runway, build a hierarchical business. And feminine energy is the opposite of that. It's everything's spinning, so it's circular in the visualization of it, and fast moving. And so as an entrepreneur, I'm fascinated by this because I have observed for a long time now how this, what was a slow shift in energy but is now gaining momentum, how that's changed the business world. Up until only a few years ago, the average age or longevity of a publicly traded company was about 75 years, and some of them have been around for hundreds. Up until recently, that is. Now the average age of a company is less than 20 years. And we've seen companies that were in books like Good to Great and Built to Last that we thought would be here forever. They don't exist anymore. Where are the Blockbusters and the Circuit Cities and the Border Books? They were staples, right? What happened to Sears, Macy's? What's happening to? And it's because of this change in energy. And so if you're not aware of the change in energy, you get caught out because you don't get a chance to get inside the tornado. You're always going to be on the outside, and you're going to suffer as a result of that. So as an entrepreneur, I'm fascinated by this. And so let me give you some observations of how that's changed for me. So I used to be, when I worked in the hierarchical structures before I started my own companies, I was a bit of a control freak. I always had the attitude, and I used to say it out loud a lot, if you want something done well, do it yourself. I had a supervisory mentality, and I like teaching and coaching and training, but I think that was an ego thing. It's not needed anymore. So I've had to shift my supervisory mentality, if that's the right word, or my supervisor mentality, or my CEO, my leadership mentality, away from supervisor to peer trust. It's a world of trusting now. Not a world of supervising, not a world of reporting, not a world of protecting your back, not a world of trying to impress your boss. And because of that, I've changed my business structures accordingly. So whereas before the hierarchical structure was the appropriate structure, and I was very good at it, I had a fast-track career, I could BS in a meeting room as well as anybody, I knew how to write reports in a way that would make me look good. Those skills don't count anymore. And so now I think of the feminine energy that we've moved into from a business standpoint as been spiraling. And so my business structures are hub models of alliances. So I don't employ people anymore. So I can't move quickly enough when I've got a bunch of employees, a bunch of middle managers who spend all the time complaining about the environment that they're working in. Don't have time for that anymore. And so by putting a hub structure together, using vendors and contractors who all know what they're doing, I can grow big fast. And that's the secret today to business, get big fast. And whereas previously I would have to build a company like build locally and then go regionally and then go statewide and then go state by state, then go national. Then if you're really good, go global. And that could take decades or even a century. Now you can start a company right now and tomorrow engage the whole world with simply a click of a mouse. It's a different game. And because I like to play this game and I want to stay in it a bit longer, I've had to adapt the way that I behave as an entrepreneur. So if you want to know more about this, just go to trevorgblake.com, Secrets to a Successful Startup. Go down that rabbit hole and you'll be fascinated, I think, learning how things are changing and how you as an entrepreneur or a would-be entrepreneur perhaps need to change the way you would have behaved and the way you would have built a company without this knowledge. And so the feminine energy spinning really fast means I have to get in quickly. So I've changed my supervisor mentality. I've changed my business structure. I've also changed the way I negotiate because previously with the linear mentality, it was always across a table and it was invariably males on one side and males on the other. This is not a gender conversation. We call these energies masculine and feminine only so we can understand them. I am 50% male, 50% female. The only difference between me and a female sitting across from here is XY chromosome. But because I'm also a product of my environment and I was told that I was a man, then I've focused my life more on the masculine energy sides of life, right? And a woman has been told she's a girl and she's focused on the feminine aspects of life. And her time is coming, or is here, which is brilliant. On the negotiation table, previously it was male against male typically, and it was a war of attrition, and we all talk complete nonsense because that's very typical of the masculine energy side. It's like sitting in a meeting room and everything that can be said has been said, but everyone has to say it in a different way. You all know what that feels like. It drives you insane. Well, on the negotiation table, it's 10 times worse, right? So everyone says, oh, we're going for a win-win, but there's no such thing. Everyone's going for a win. Everyone. You hope the person on the opposite side, having lost, feels like they won. That's a win-win. It's not about win-win. Never was. All those books about win-win, they used to drive me nuts. But what I find now is there's really no negotiation anymore. I come to the negotiation table and invariably it's feminine energy across from me on the negotiation table, and the valuation has already been established. It's been established based on fairness. All of the studies done by great companies like Credit Suisse into male and female leadership and the differences shows that women are more effective leaders. Now this is a gender conversation. Women are more effective leaders when conflicting interests are involved, because they move immediately to the fact. They're not interested in the game and the play. What's the fact? What's the true value? And they come to a conclusion in the head, that's the true value. And I come into this negotiation and it's up to me to get on board with that fair value. And if I want to try and make it higher or want to make it lower, I'm outside the tornado. It's not going to happen. I've seen a big change in that, a big shift, and I really do quite like it, I have to say. And you see that played out in society. So now there are so many more car dealerships where previously you'd go in, you'd buy a car or lease a car, you come out, you have no idea if you got a good deal. You have no idea. Mostly you feel I've been beaten up. Now you go to a lot of car dealerships, they get in onto this feminine energy, and you go in and the price is set and that's the price. And they're more concerned about you being a satisfied customer and coming back in the future than they are about getting a good deal and making a big commission. That's the difference between masculine and feminine energy. This part is not a gender discussion, okay? It's just the energy and how we react to the energy and how it plays through us. TrevorGblake.com, we're all about playing with energy. And we learn energy and we learn about the way the world is made. And so if we can learn to interact with energy in a slightly different way, if we can play slightly differently, we get different outcomes. That's what we're about. And that's why this topic of this shift in energy from dominant masculine energy to dominant female energy, feminine energy, is so fun and so interesting. And so because females are more in tune with feminine energy, two things can happen. One is we're going to see a natural rise of females into positions of authority. We're seeing it already. And two is most men will be fast asleep and miss out and not get into the tornado. They'll be outside the tornado because they don't see this coming, even though it's here already. And so those who are awake, and hopefully you're listening to this YouTube video and you think, I'm going to look into this a bit more. That's all I'm saying. Then you'll start to do different things, and you'll start to, instead of relying on analysis and data, you'll start to rely on intuition a lot more. And that's a challenge. So you've got to learn how to deepen your intuition, which I've been doing for decades. TrevorGblake.com, all the tools and techniques are there. But it's going to be really important because you don't have time now when something changes in the market. You don't have time to call a meeting or to hire someone to figure it out. You've got to make a very rapid, intuitive decision. And these are the changes. So if you go online, you can get the view of the great age of transformation from an astrologer, but you won't find many entrepreneurs out there talking about this. So I'm giving you my perspective as an entrepreneur of what this great age of transformation is about. And I'm loving it. I'm loving it because it makes me feel young again. I feel like I'm 20 and I have a whole new adventure ahead of me. And so I'm building businesses that are with this hub spiraling structure, that I can get big fast. Get big fast is a mantra for entrepreneurs right now, that's the age we're moving into. And then exit. Get big fast, exit before you get taken out, before you get replaced by changes in innovation, better technology, etc. It's a fun time, but it's a completely different approach that we have to take in order to survive and thrive in business. The one aspect of feminine energy that most people I meet don't understand, And I get, because I'm fascinated by anthropology, so when I dive deep into history, I find that when you go back beyond 1284, going deep into time now, the most successful warriors, the most successful leaders of armies were feminine. And what's interesting about that, and also, you know, the world was a village-centric world in those days. That only changed right about 1740, but it was a village-centric world. And in the village culture, in the society, in the structure, in the hierarchy, there was no hierarchy. It was very circular. Villages are very circular. The leaders of the village-centric culture, however big or wherever it was, were female. They're the ones that organized and delegated. Oftentimes they were the hunters, because their intuitive skills and their telepathic skills, which we've lost a lot of that over the years, but their telepathic skills enabled them to get closer to the prey than a man with big muscles running, okay, would frighten the prey away. So they were very skilled hunters as well, but typically the men were the hunters, but they were sent hunting by the females who organized. They were the political leaders of the village-centric cultures. And the majority of healers back then were male. It was completely switched. And it'll switch back to that, I hope. But the one thing I wanted to mention was, what's lost, I think, when people talk about male and feminine energy is most people don't know what they're talking about, haven't studied physics, haven't studied anthropology. They're just getting on the bandwagon of, oh yeah, it's going to be great. It'll be great to get more female leaders. Well, yes, it will, but that's not what this is all about. It's not a gender conversation. It's about changing how you use the energy of the time, changing yourself to use it at the time. And what's interesting when you go back in time is that the great female warriors were absolutely ruthless. And most people don't think about this. So the feminine energy, one of the identities of feminine energy is that it's about survival. And so you're on board or you're not on board. So female warriors never went back to pick up their wounded because it slowed them down and they had a goal to get to. And female warriors never took prisoners because prisoners eat food and the food is for their own. And so even from a compassionate, nurturing standpoint, female warriors could appear to be incredibly ruthless. They left no one. There were no prisoners. There were no survivors. There were no casualties. And I'm seeing the same thing in business. Ironically, in the masculine energy time I've had in business, I saw a lot of sentiment and compassion. Now I see none. It's get taken out is the mantra, is the mentality right now. So it's survival almost at all costs. And the number of mergers and acquisitions that we're seeing is at a pace we've never seen before. And it's for that reason. It's survive or get out. And so that changes every aspect of business too. Now, there may be on this YouTube video, maybe some investors come in to watch this YouTube video. What's really interesting now is that 52% of all new businesses are started by women. It's not a gender conversation, it's just that they're more in tune with the feminine energy. And yet last year, 2020, 98% of all venture capital investment went into male-led companies. So I would suggest that VCs are not aware of this change and are going to be in for a whole world of pain unless they get on board. So that's another message and another observation from a businessman looking at what is this great shift that we're going through right now. Now this great shift will last for 4 or 5 years. It will change every aspect of our lives. It will be very disruptive, and then the repercussions of that change last for the next however many centuries, 6, 7, 8 centuries, until we shift back again. And that's what I observe and that's what I feel, and I hope this is of use to you. I'm sure it's controversial. I'm sure you all have different opinions and different observations, and I would love to hear what they are. That's why I do these YouTube videos. Let's get some conversation going. Please hit the subscribe button, because I think there's a lot of people out there. You know, I'm fairly new at YouTube. I typically don't have I've just been doing this for a few months now. and I don't have a lot of subscribers, so I'm under the radar of a lot of people who really would like to be part of this debate. So please do yourself and do them a favor, hit the subscribe button, and I'll get higher up the algorithm and more people will get on board, and we'll have a bigger and better, deeper conversation, and we'll all be better prepared for the shift. Thank you.